Good morning. My name is Bill Sullivan. I'm the Vice President for Denodo here in Washington, D.C., with responsibility for the federal government business. I have the privilege today of speaking with Justin Marsico, the Chief Data Officer for the U.S. federal government Bureau of Fiscal Service within the Department of Treasury. It's a particularly critical agency for both for the government and for our country. Justin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on CDO Magazine discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Bill. It's a real privilege.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. So can you just, for the benefit of our viewers, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And how did you find yourself at the Department of the Treasury?
Thanks. Yeah, I grew up mostly in the Detroit area. As a kid, I went to school in Ohio, a little liberal arts school called Kenyon College. I studied music and philosophy, not things that were directly related to what I do today. After school, I moved to San Francisco, started a small record label with a couple of friends. That didn't work out in terms of being a successful business, but was a really good learning experience for me. And I went to graduate school back in Michigan, studied economics and public policy, and joined the federal government through a fellowship program that we have where you basically take the equivalent of like a civil service test, do some interviews, and then you can become a civilian federal employee. And I started my career working at the Commerce Department, working at one of the audit organizations that we have here in the federal government called the Inspector General.
Did you pick up the economics allowed you to capture the accounting? And one of those unknown things, musicians actually make great computer coders because they're used to taking abstract concepts and reducing them down to finite linear thought. Did you find that helped you in getting into data and becoming a chief data officer? Your musical background?
It's an interesting question. I started taking piano lessons when I was 4 years old and took them all the way through college. And one of the things I would hear people say a lot when I was a kid was like, "Oh, if you're good at music or you read music a lot, like it also means that you're good at math." I didn't feel particularly good at math. Like when I remember being in algebra 1, algebra 2, being like, "This is not helping me at all." But yes, I do think that it's about learning to read in another language, and it's more, you have to get to the level where you're able to, see notes and to be able to react in the moment to what they are and to put your hands where they need to be if you're playing piano or, do whatever you need to do if you're playing a different instrument. So it is about kind of like learning a different type of language and being inside of the world of technology, like you have to be able to speak many different languages, whether you're interacting with software or you're talking to people who do different things or like have different areas of expertise or jargon. So I think that is
an
important skill.
As someone who's a late in life piano, that took it up late in life, I have a deep respect for you. Congratulations. You took a great background and turned it into certainly something that's helping the government and the country. I congratulate you.
That's great. And congratulations to you. I think that learning, it's easy when you were given the gift of lessons or learning to do something in childhood to like carry that through. It's a lot harder when you're an adult to try something new. So congratulations to you.
Well, that's a great background. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Bureau of Fiscal Service, but let me just ask you, what do you most enjoy doing working there, and what would you change? Everybody brings an experience into work. What would you change while you're there, in your current role?
I think the Fiscal Service is a very interesting place because we work across the federal government, across the executive branch, with finance professionals who run the financial operations of the federal government. And across the executive branch, it's a massive amount of money that is being spent by the federal government. In some recent years, it's up to a quarter of the GDP spent by federal agencies. And so that brings a lot of activity. And it also brings a lot of diversity. There's a lot of different types of activities that are going on, and we get to learn and have some level of involvement with all of those different activities. We have some common themes that we focus on, like ensuring that there is integrity in our payment processes. If an agency is trying to make a payment, whether for Social Security or a veterans benefit or paying a defense contractor, we want to make sure that the payment is going to the right person for the right purpose at the right time. So there are common things that we try to do across the federal government. Another one that is really key that I'll point out that you mentioned earlier is accounting. In order for us to understand how much money the federal government has on hand, how much money is in the Treasury general account, how much debt we have, what our obligations are, we need to make sure that we know all the points at which transactions are happening, and those are feeding into us in a way that is accurate and following the same methodology and has integrity as well. So there are some common themes to what we do with all agencies. But it is a privilege to be able to sit in a position where we can, really interact with anyone across the federal space.
Yeah, that's well stated. As we were chatting before the interview, I pointed out that, you're the referee on the field. You effectively ensure the integrity of U.S. government federal operations, right? I mean, the Bureau of Fiscal Services, you just mentioned you touch all of government approach. You try to apply common themes to ensure integrity in the numbers. And assure the financial probity of the United States government. In preparing for our discussion, I looked at the strategic plan. They had a couple of things that I'd like to touch on with you. First was the whole number one is the whole issue of business transformation, looking to transform the businesses to generate new value and improve capabilities. Number two, harness emerging technology and business practices. You just touched a little bit on that. And then operational integrity, again, ensuring security, resiliency, controls of operation and business. So, and then it goes on to Roman numeral number two, they use data pretty much to accomplish all of that. So, how do you, from a day-to-day or monthly, quarterly strategic perspective, how do you support those three primary goals of Bureau of Fiscal Service: the transformation, harnessing emerging technology, and operational integrity?
Yeah, we do. Thank you for bringing our strategic plan here into this discussion. I hope people find this interesting and can find areas where this resonates with things that they're working on in their own organizations. I think one of the common themes that data officers have, in addition to managing data, is transformation of the business, because a lot of data officers work for firms that are not digital native. And so part of using data in organizations requires a lot of transformation of our processes, of our technology, the upskilling of our people, the changing of our culture. All those things are really important. I am lucky in the sense that a couple of those things that you mentioned, business transformation, emerging technology, and operational integrity, those strategic initiatives are actually managed by other executives that I can partner with them on. The most critical thing for me to do when I'm trying to figure out how to accomplish these goals is to prioritize. And in my organization, probably like many people's organization, as a data officer, you can kind of look out in front of you and see at any moment 10,000 different projects that you could take on. And in my organization, I'm the first person to be a data officer, which I think is a not uncommon position for people to find themselves in, especially in the federal government. And so that's especially true. A lot of the work that we're trying to do is being done for the first time. And if you don't want to be completely frazzled or not making progress on any of your things, you need to be really ruthless about what you're prioritizing. And so for me, it's about trying to determine what the priorities of my leadership are. Where are they trying to be successful, and how can I help them as a data professional? And the other thing I think a lot about is if we're trying to become a data-driven organization, what is the main thing that's holding us back? So looking at those two elements, what my leadership cares about, what they're trying to do and how I can help, and what's holding us back from becoming a data-driven organization, that's how I think about prioritizing what I spend my time on and what our projects are, what we're trying to make progress on.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again. We appreciate it. I hope you have a great long weekend coming up. And thank you for taking your time, and our best wishes from CDO Magazine.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.